Hey, welcome to 3TC. This is Danica, and we're excited to have you with us today. It's a beautiful day out, and can't believe that it's already May, but here we go, off and running. Summer's almost here. We're so glad that you've joined us today for our last third Tuesday conversation for the 2011-2012 school year, and we're excited to have three panelists with us today talking about how to have a great youth gathering. We've got Tom Gustafson, who's at Messiah Lutheran Church in Minneapolis, Janelle Miller at Calvary Lutheran Church in Fort Worth, Texas, and Larry Wagner at Ascension Lutheran Church in Thousand Oaks, California. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Great to be here.
Good. Well, just as we get started, we've asked Larry to go first. So Larry, if you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe a little bit about your gathering experience, and then you can just sort of launch in. Tell us how we can have a great gathering experience with our group. Larry comes from a large congregation, so that's the perspective that he is offering us today.
Sure.
Take it away, Larry.
Thank you very, very much. I'm the senior pastor at Ascension Lutheran Church, but I also continue to retain the youth and family ministry portfolio because that's what I love and that's where I think God is continuing to call me. We have a tradition here in our congregation of doing a large road trip every summer, a 2-week, we call it a choir tour, and usually it is that. So we start, I think one of the secrets always to an excellent experience is to begin planning way in advance. So when we get home from one summer trip, we within a month have a parent meeting with our senior high youth, and we begin to talk about what next summer might look like. And we just start to build in this kind of expectation and anticipation to where these summer trips really create a chemistry that energize our youth ministry program for the entire next year. So it gives a focus to the year. It gives purpose to any fundraising that might take place. And it just starts to build in an anticipation on the part of our youth to go to places that they haven't been before. And especially like this summer now, as we go to New Orleans, to be able to have a chance to interact with some of their peers from all over the country. In California, Lutherans aren't as easy to find as they might be in Minnesota or Iowa. And so I think there's genuine excitement when they get into a place like the Superdome and see that many young people sharing their faith, not afraid to sing and to be able to talk about their faith in Christ. So trying to build in that kind of anticipation is part of our job, my job at least as I see it. Part of the way that we build in enthusiasm and excitement for these trips is we always do a road trip. We never fly. We did fly to the youth gatherings in Atlanta simply because a road trip from Southern California to Atlanta would require a 3 or 4 week trip. But otherwise, we do a bus trip every summer. And as young people evaluate the trip when it's over, they frequently say part of their favorite part of the experience was the time on the road together. It's community building time. So by the time we roll into New Orleans or to a Bible camp in the summertime, our group is already kind of gelled and they're ready to engage the event with all of the possibilities that it has to offer. Part of what we do too is a way to maximize our experience at the gathering is I build in a couple of little mystery pieces. So even though we have a well-articulated itinerary and agenda ahead of time, we have a couple of things that only I know about, not even our bus driver, not even our chaperones or adults, and they can't wait. They can't wait to see what has been built into their trip for this summer. So I did that in New Orleans 3 years ago, which included one of the days we did the swamp tour, and that ended up being one of the highlights as we looked at our calendar, our agenda, and found a window where we decided to do that. I think part of the way of helping the young people to have an excellent experience too is to address what you know are going to be some of the discomforts of the adventure. I tell our group there's going to be long, lines for everything, including bathrooms and the lines at McDonald's. So patience is really a critical piece of our preparation. We know it's going to be hot and humid, and it won't be anybody's fault. It's just the way it's going to be in New Orleans. And if we are honest about that ahead of time, I think it will get rid of some of the impatience or some of the negative that sometimes can emerge when life isn't very comfortable. And then I think part of the last thing I'll just mention right here is I think to kind of create a pride and a confidence in your group, not arrogance, but a pride and a confidence where we believe that the gathering in New Orleans is going to be better because we're going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That's great.
So those are a couple of my thoughts.
Thanks, Larry. We're going to jump to Janelle. And Janelle, I'm the same sort of format. If you'd tell us a little bit about yourself and a couple of your tips, tricks, whatever, musings about how to help us have a great gathering.
Okay, thank you. I am Janelle Miller. I am the youth director at Calvary in Fort Worth. We are traveling with 40 kids this year. I've been doing this for about 20 years. This is my 10th gathering I've attended. I went to Denver in '85 as a youth, and then this will be my 9th gathering as an adult coordinator. So we've learned, several things over the years. I guess the biggest one for me is to have everything very well planned out because I travel with a larger group. We make all of our meal reservations, all of our sightseeing reservations. We have it well planned out so that we spend less time in lines because for us it would be a long time to be in line. Like Larry, we've got surprises for our kids. The parents know and the congregation knows, but we are taking them on swamp tours and things like that. All of that we've already got reserved, but our congregation, one of the pieces we're adding to help them stay connected is that they're sponsoring kids for different sightseeing events, and so the kids will open up a note every day from a random congregational member who sponsored them to say, we're praying for you today, we hope you're having a great time, and we're treating you to a swamp tour. And then we'll go off on that swamp tour. So every day there will be some type of connection with a person that they may or may not know from the congregation. And then those congregational members as well will have bracelets on, like those little sticky ones, that will have somebody's name on it that they'll be praying for during the week. So we're trying to keep our congregation and our kids really well connected.
Cool. That's great. All right. Tom, you're up. Tell us a little bit about yourself and some of your ideas.
Yes, thanks a lot. I'm happy to be here. My name is Tom Gustafson. I'm the youth and family minister at Messiah Lutheran Church just outside of downtown Minneapolis. We're right kind of in the core city, in this wonderful neighborhood in the city. And actually about, Messiah is 104 years old, and on our 100th anniversary, we moved out of our old traditional building into a building called the Center for Changing Lives, which we share with a lot of different partners, specifically Lutheran Social Service with all of their ministries. And so if anything, our young people have learned to be flexible, and there's shared space in this building, and we don't have a youth room anymore, but we kind of move around and we use rooms that are available in this building, and we've sort of discovered that's a pretty neat way to be the church in the city, to share this building with the whole neighborhood and all the faith traditions and all the different cultures. It's a pretty neat way to go. And so it's actually kind of a good precursor, if you will, to the gathering, which I think is just a great gift of the ELCA. And we just get the journey building up, and then the kind of the afterglow after the gathering we've discovered is really every bit as good as the gathering itself. The anticipation, the preparation, and then we call it the afterglow after. Messiah is also able to participate in the Mile event, the multicultural youth leadership event. So we feel really blessed because we kind of get two gatherings in one, sort of. We sort of get a double whammy when we go down there. And the Mile is, we've learned, is kind of an intimate group. There's only 600 or 700 people at that. And then about midweek is when most of the other groups would come in, and all of a sudden we kind of settle in with the other, 35,000 or so in the city. But it's a great way for us to get a glimpse of the greater, the Wilder Church, not the Wilder Church,
maybe the Wilder Church.
the wider church. It's wonderful for us to see that. We make friends globally. We make friends locally because we discovered that to travel to this thing, we're small enough. We could never pull this off on our own. So we have to, or we get to, collaborate with other congregations in the metro here, and we enjoy those economies of scale, and that really kind of gets us pulled out of ourselves, if you will, and into the lives and joys and sorrows and concerns and challenges of other people right in our metro area here. The preparation, what Larry and Janice said, I don't think you can overdo that. Again, for several months, up to a year before, we're kind of being cheerleaders for this gathering, and we try to have monthly meetings. I think the Bible studies and material from the ELCA is great stuff. We never get around to using it all, but it really helps us to kind of focus on. We're not just going down there to goof around all the time, although we do some of that. There's a real reason that we're there. Maybe I shouldn't have said the goof around part. Okay.
Nope, we all know that it exists.
So we try to get together monthly, sometimes just with our own group and sometimes with the 4 or 5 congregations that we travel with. Fundraising is huge for us. None of us have the ability here to even come close to paying for this thing. So we maybe later in the webinar we can, if that is of interest, we could talk about that. But then afterwards, it's needful for me to get as much a mileage, if you will, out of it, just to remember that, to remember the citizens of the saints, to remember what we did. Or last in 2009, we had a service project right down where the levees had broken, and it was so powerful that one of our youth leaders hooked on with an Augsburg college trip, and he went back the next year because he wanted to do a little more down there. So we remember that, and we give thanks for that. Actually, the 2009 gathering was even though we formed a youth leadership team from that group that went to the gathering in 2009. Maybe that's enough for now. Here's one more cool thing I'll say that I think. In those few days that we're down there, the worship and the fun and the service and their serious conversations, we get it all in a few days, and you know it's just something that we live into and live out of. And when we finally get on that bus to that motor coach to go on, you know, we finally look at each other and we say, okay, we did it. We're actually going. Until they fire up that bus and it pulls out of the parking lot, it's always, boy, should we do something else? More we should do. And then we can finally just kick back and enjoy the ride.
Great. That's wonderful. We've got a couple questions from seasoned 3TC listeners coming in, but I want to remind the rest of you that you have the ability to enter this conversation by typing your question in the question box at the right-hand side of your screen, and I will pass them along. Our first question is for Larry, and it comes from Elizabeth. She wonders, how do you get your group to gel before you go?
I think everything that we do in the months in preparation for make that happen. First of all, some of the same thing that was mentioned by Tom a moment ago, the Bible studies that we do ahead of time. I think the fundraisers for us become kind of the coalescing piece. We, again, with coming from out here, the cost for travel and all that is just kind of exacerbated. And so the amount of money that our kids have to come up with is significant. So we take on some really large fundraising projects. One of them is, for example, is we just completed it. It's we're the cleanup crew for our annual Conejo Valley Days, which is an annual community event that is kind of like an old-time fair, but it runs 4 or 5 days. And if you've ever been to an amusement park and you see people doing the cleanup, we are the cleanup crew. And sometimes people think, well, our group would never pick up trash. And yet our group is, we've owned that now for almost 30 years, that project.
Wow.
Whoa.
And the older youth mentor the younger youth. It's a wonderful thing to watch. They take pride in their cleaning ability, if you will. And if you could hear the laughter at the end of the day when all the people are gone from the fair and we're doing the final cleanup, and as they're emptying trash cans and throwing it on a truck and hauling it and throwing it in a dumpster, the laughter and excitement among the group, it doesn't make sense, but it ends up being part of the creating the kind of the synergy for the trip. So it's a combination of the fundraisers, the Bible studies, and just some of the other retreats and things we do in anticipation for the national trip. And then the time on the bus becomes really group building time. I'm such a believer in road trips, and where you can, whether it's a van or a bus, but where your group travels together for any number of days. We'll spend 5 days getting to New Orleans, and that's part of our group building time too.
Great. This question, and you can fight over it, it's addressed to anybody. How much do you feel like you are responsible for the gathering/program experience versus how much do you let the gathering program, quote, speak for itself, and how? Does that make sense?
Well, I think, yeah, I think I get the gist of that, and I certainly am. I guess, you know, the buck would stop with me for preparing our adults and youth and whatnot as well. But that's one of the things we have some serious conversation too. And I would never take someone on one of these trips that I don't, you know, trust to be in their room at a certain time. And when I go in my room, that they're, you know, not one more time to the ice machine or something. And we really talk about that. And each one of us are, not only the gathering staff, not only the adult leaders who are all cheerleaders and those type of things, but each one of us attempts to take a responsibility that I'm going to get out of this thing, what I put into it. And remember, you know, there we haven't picked up trash at a amusement park or anything, but we remember some of the grunt work, if you will, that we've done, and we're down there maybe enjoying a big Superdome night. Remember, you know, 4 months ago, and we were kind of grumping about doing this, and, you know, here we are. You know, it paid off. Here's the fruit of it that we're hanging out with Agape here tonight. And so each one of us is stepping up as best as we can, and that isn't to say that, you know, we still got to rouse people out of bed once in a while, but we all try to keep that on ourselves, and we talk about that intentionally.
I think even as you choose your adult leaders that will go with you, I think that's part of the discernment that we should pray for, that we have the correct adult leaders along, because they have a great deal to do with the attitude and the perspective of our youth. As I do some teaching on youth ministry periodically, I occasionally advocate the idea of sending an adult leader home rather than youth, because if they're not a positive presence and encouraging presence, seeing possibilities and always looking for ways for our group to positively engage in the gathering, they can help create just negative memories that work against us. So I think that's where I would say I have a responsibility, is in helping to identify the right adult leaders to help create a positive chemistry in the group.
All right. Janelle, did you have anything to add?
I would agree with the adult leader piece, that they are key and just our greatest cheerleaders for the kids. But also I put a lot of it on the gathering. They've worked really hard to plan everything. We try as a congregation to participate in all the activities they have, and then always be available in the evenings to debrief what they've heard, so that the gathering experience is the experience in itself, but that we're there then to reinforce, to clarify anything somebody doesn't understand, or to kind of debrief it at the end of the night within our own congregational or synod times this year.
Great.
I totally concur on that's a critical time.
Well said.
Great. All right, couple more questions coming in. This one comes from Missy, and she says, I have 10 kids from our church, but we're traveling with a group of 80. is it a good idea to make dinner reservations, or as a smaller group will we be able to easily find someplace to eat and or have time to get in and eat before the mass gathering?
Do you know what? I'm a big believer in, even with a group of 10, I would make the reservation because it takes all the guesswork out of it. You've already, I mean, Bubba Gump's, I've got restaurants that have been fabulous to work with, so it will maximize our free time then when I took only 3 last time, but it still maximized our free time that we knew at 5:30 we were walking in, everything was ready for us, and then we can go on and we can maximize our other time. So I would encourage you to do it. Just it takes one piece of guesswork out of your day that it's already planned for, and you know what it is. A lot of places will even let you pick your meals ahead of time and again expedite how much time you're spending in the restaurant. Bubba Gump's Italian Pie, a lot of those will let you send in 2 days ahead of time. This is how many entrees of these things that we want. You pay with one bill, it's done. It just makes it very easy for us at least.
I would sure opt for going with the 10 rather than the 80 if that were a choice.
Oh, I would agree with that. Absolutely. I would take care of your group of 10. Good point.
Great. All right, next question coming in from Amy. How much freedom are you planning on giving your kids? Do you intend to let kids find their way to the dome or find food in groups of 3 or 4 without an adult? If yes, how do you communicate to parents that that's safe?
Well, we have decided that we're not going to go to the dome in little subgroups. You know, we're going to do that together, and maybe if there's a hotel, coffee shop, or something across the street, if somebody wants to go during the nightlife time, that one of our adults would go with, and we would travel in those groups. A lot of our young people, I think they have probably more street smart than I'll ever have, but we're still made that covenant that, you know, we're not going to run off, and we're not going to go just, oh, I just want to go on this boutique thing for a minute, and no, you know, we're going to do it, and so that's another one of our sort of points that we kind of get done laughing sometimes, and we say, you know, this is how we're going to, you know, roll down there as much as we can, and so we've made an agreement with our parents who are home here and with our leaders here and with our kids that, yeah, we're gonna do things together.
We are also, all of our meals are together. Our traveling is mostly in a large group, although if one group wants to go shopping, we'll do a little bit of breaking off, but we stayed, I mean, this is a bonding time for us. This is a get-to-know-you time. This is where memories are made, so we're doing most of ours together as a group.
We travel everywhere in the city as a large group. We always go to the Dome as a large group. In some free time, if we go down to like Jackson Square, I'll allow the group to break into groups of 4 or more, where they might have an hour or 2 to explore a certain neighborhood like the French Market or to have something at Café du Monde, but always traveling from one area to the other as a large group. The other thing to remember is the curfew in the city, that at some point there shouldn't be any youth traveling without an adult presence.
Yes, and that's moved up to 8 p.m. this year. So kids are not allowed to be without adults after 8 p.m., but it's probably just a good idea to have them with them all the time. All right. Now that we've got a question from Julie. Now that we're set to go, the kids have stopped showing up for our service projects and Bible studies. How do you hold them accountable without, without guilt for the financial gifts of the members in support of their trip?
Well, at least for us, the fundraisers are part, I think Janice was saying, they're part of the bonding, and the fundraisers aren't necessarily just kind of the grunt work. Well, this is something I gotta endure so I can go to this thing. But you know, we try to make them kind of with some levity too. And we haven't done it yet. We want to have a benefit concert here that would be a really cool thing for everybody to be at and to plan. And you know, it's running a dinner. Or we haven't been totally creative in some of our fundraising, but we've got some dynamite partner churches in the suburbs that have helped really a lot with our fundraisers and pulling them off and participating in them with them. And they've been kind of your thing about laughing, picking up trash. There's something that can be comical about serving a meal or dressing up like a waiter or something and doing that. And it's part of the experience. And we haven't had much trouble, at least at Messiah here, getting people to come to those things. But I think you can make them as with as much levity and much fun and as much kind of joy. It's not something that's not joyful.
You can build in some connecting pieces also, like on the Pentecost Sunday next on the 27th. We've got Agape coming here to bring some hip hop worship, and I must guarantee you that that hasn't ever happened in our worship services before. In Thousand Oaks, California, it just doesn't happen. But I think our youth are tremendously excited about it because a number of them have grown up going to youth gatherings where he has been one of the featured artists. And so now he will then both, as he talks about the malaria campaign, he will also then be talking about the youth gathering. And for our kids, just another connecting point to New Orleans.
You bet.
Great. We've got questions flooding in, so we'll keep them rolling here. Neil's wondering, how do you know what times you have available for dinner or side tours?
Well, they've given us our schedule as far as what days are we're at the convention center, what day is your service day. And so just based on past gatherings, we're making relatively educated guesses that on our service day, we're going to do dinner, but we're going to do it right before the gathering. On Wednesday, nothing starts until 7 p.m. We're arriving Tuesday, so that gives us all day Wednesday that we can plan. Thursday after our service, most of the time you get back in the afternoon, so there's some free time built in there, plus, dinner on the way to the dome. If you kind of look at what your color slots or your discipleship days and your service days are, it makes it a little bit easier to figure out how much time you have.
Great. Tony's wondering how you handle breakfast.
We do it in the hotel ballroom. We have reserved it for the week because it's not a gathering hotel. It's not a nightlife hotel. And so we will be bringing breakfast in for our group every day where they'll come downstairs and get fruit and breakfast bars and juices and stuff. So we're doing it, we're providing it every day for our group.
We stayed at the Marriott on Canal Street last time, and after one day of nobody showing up in the restaurant in the morning, the hotel put out a a la carte kind of breakfast line, and I think most of the big hotels are wise enough to do that. Our group with our synod is staying at the Drury Inn, where there actually there is a breakfast available down in the lobby.
Yeah, we've done a little bit more. I think, like Janice, that we've carried some of our own stuff. We've actually eaten in a hotel room and had an ice chest, and we've a couple of our adult leaders have been really creative, and they're bringing honey bunches of oats and all that, and we're eating that for a week. And by the end of that, I'm ready for a different breakfast, really. But one thing we've discovered is that the mile, all that's prepared, and we just show up for meals, and the mile is just, again, just this wonderful student leadership, servant leadership gathering. And then we know that the reality check is going to come on Wednesday afternoon, because now all of a sudden we've got to get creative with our meals, and that's when the golden grams and the honey bunches comes out.
Great. That's what we do too. We designate 2 rooms for breakfast rooms, and the kids just come through, grab a bowl of cereal, and go back to their room to finish getting ready. So,
yeah, that's what we do.
All right. Christina asks, for a first timer ever to the gathering, how do you find restaurants that won't be super busy? Well, good luck. And how much time do you allow for dinner before the mass gathering event?
We have reservations, so we're in and out always within an hour for dinner. Over the years, we've never had to deal with more than that, but good luck. Every restaurant's going to be crazy because there's 35,000 people all clamoring to eat at the same time. So if you don't have you've just got to allow enough time knowing that you could be standing in line waiting. Or
Even
eat
to
at
check
off-peak
with
times.
like the concierge or the front desk in the hotel you're at, and ask them for some of the local tips where there's some of these small side streets where there's some really neat little restaurants that are out of the mainstream that the large group hasn't found yet. So asking questions of local folks is a good hint also.
Great. Let's see. We've got question. How are you going to handle Bourbon Street?
We're going to intentionally go down it as a group and talk about it and not make it, we're going to try to take the mystery out of it by just experiencing it together and talking about it.
And how many is your group, Janelle?
42.
Okay.
We're doing exactly the same thing. The last time I did this, then in our evening devotional time where we process the day, it was one of the absolute best and encouraging conversations that we had in the whole trip. You can't ignore it. Might as well take it on head on. And I'd also recommend not doing it at midnight. Earlier in the evening would be a wise move.
And not have that be the centerpiece. That's right. I totally agree that, go there, talk about it, and then kind of move on to something else, not have it be a big mountaintop experience or something like that.
With a large group, do you have sort of a discussion discussion guide sheet, whatever? Do you have adult leaders take smaller groups through? I mean, there's groups who are traveling with 80 people down Bourbon Street are trying to hear what's being talked about. Might be tricky. Do you have any tips on that?
We didn't choose to have conversations along the way. It was a matter of letting them observe and react. We were kind of spread out, and we started making the walk. I was on front of the group. I had the other adult leaders being the sweepers, so to speak, being in the back. And the further we walked, the closer everybody was walking together. The girls just kind of closed into a little knot behind me. Kind of felt very uncomfortable, and we talked. They had some marvelous observations at the end of the day, but I didn't choose to try and keep a running dialogue while we were walking down Bourbon Street.
Okay,
great.
Great.
We did the exact same thing. We spread our adults out in the middle of the group, and it was addressed later, not at the time.
Awesome. Well, I'm afraid we're out of time. We have one question we didn't get to, but I think we're just going to have to cut it off for today. Thank you so much. This was a very helpful conversation. I hope that those of you listening in also found it to be helpful. So thanks for being here, Tom and Janelle and Larry. We so appreciate it.
Yeah.
My privilege. Thank you for asking.
Have a great time.
Larry and Janelle, and
see you in New Orleans.
You bet.
Absolutely.
Just a few housekeeping things as we before we end. Our next third Tuesday conversation will be September 18th, 2012, always at 1 p.m. Central. So we hope that you have a great summer and a fantastic time at the gathering. Blessings to all of you who are traveling. Thanks to Trinity Lutheran College for supporting 3TC. We're grateful for your partnership, and we'll chat with you in September. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.